Hi everyone, Master P here from the Language of Composition 3rd edition. We are here for another close reading passage video, and today we're looking at an excerpt from a book written by Barbara Ehrenreich. The book is called Nickel and Dimed, and this particular chapter where the passage comes from is called Serving in Florida. So let's jump into it. We know that when we read closely, we are trying to read actively. So it's not just sitting back and enjoying the text, although of course we hope you enjoy the text, but it's really reading with the purpose and intent of revealing those layers of meaning, understanding the writer's purpose, the writer's argument, how a writer conveys that argument through different rhetorical strategies and style. So really looking at a piece of writing or any kind of text from an academic standpoint. So we're going to need some tools to do this. We'll need our copies of the Language of Composition 3rd edition. We'll need our key passage handouts. Highlighters are helpful, and of course, something to write with a pen or a pencil. We always start by considering that rhetorical situation. So we think about the rhetorical triangle, the classic rhetorical triangle, which helps us visualize the idea that a text is created or influenced by the speaker, the person who composes the text, the subject matter, and the audience. And then all of those elements are informed by the larger context. So could be historical factors leading up to that point, certainly contemporary issues, and the occasion, that spark that really motivated the speaker to create whatever it is he or she created. So let's take a look at the situation, the rhetorical situation for this text. So we know the speaker is a woman named Barbara Ehrenreich. She was a journalist. She was involved in the academic world as a teacher, and she took it upon herself to not go undercover, well, sort of in a way go undercover, but to investigate how low-wage workers were getting by in America, or as the title of her book implies, not getting by in America, and to bring her own observations into the discussion. So the book was published in 2001. There's a lot going on at that time, a lot of talk going on about welfare reform. And in addition to the facts of the book is really compelling because Ehrenreich herself goes to work in these low-wage jobs, and she reports on and describes what that kind of lifestyle is like. So her audience would be not so much the low-wage workers she worked beside, right? Because they know what their lives are like, but really that larger audience of wealthy, perhaps privileged people, certainly people who are interested in the subject matter, other academics who are studying these issues, but people who don't have the kind of personal insight into those low-wage jobs that Ehrenreich was seeking to describe. The language is extremely accessible and readable, which implies that it's for a larger audience. It's not an esoteric kind of academic text only meant to be read by university professors. So she talks obviously about low-wage jobs. She gets at issues of cost of living, the national economy, but really on a very personal level, and then also workplace culture. She really brings up issues within workplace culture. So our first step would be to read this passage, make sure we understand what's going on. It's very accessible, very easy to understand. So I'm going to pause the video so that you can take a moment to read over this short passage. All right. So now we want to make sure we understand those overall features, right? Because analysis is the process of breaking something apart, looking at how all the individual pieces work together to create the whole. So I'm going to refer to my notes here and say that the way I described her purpose is that she's trying to depict low-wage workers' lives and experiences, and through that depiction, create an understanding which would then hopefully lead to better policies and better laws or procedures that would inform welfare, low-wage jobs, workplace culture. The mood, I said, was certainly kind of tongue-in-cheek. There's a humor to her writing. And so another word that we might be able to apply is wry, W-R-Y. She's like a little sarcastic humor happening. So her tone, it seems like she is resigned to this pain and to this kind of work, but also admiring. I think her attitude toward low-wage workers is admiring. And yeah. And then her position is that people work hard for very little reward, that this work is hard work. That would be her position. Okay. So our next steps would be to annotate this passage. Look for moments where we need help, perhaps understanding something, also looking at style, argument, the development of the argument. And then we can use our graphic organizer to collect our thoughts and then turn the graphic organizer work into rhetorical analysis. So let's switch over to the passage. And she says, she starts off this particular section with a description of her pain. And there's some humor here created with this colloquial kind of off the cuff phrase, tossing back, right? It makes it sound like taking these pain medications is no big deal. Something that you would do easily, like have a mint or a Tic Tac. So that phrase, tossing back, the commonality of it makes it feel like she is describing taking pills as just part of the process of what you do. So there's some humor there. And then the simile, that tossing back, the humor is sort of further compounded by the simile comparing ibuprofen to vitamin C, something that's actually healthy for you that people should be taking. And then she refers to why it's this little injury that has come back to full spasm strength thanks to the tray carrying. In my ordinary life, so drawing our attention to, and she does this in this passage a couple of times, making the distinction or drawing our attention to the difference between how she used to live when she had a disposable income and she was working as a professional versus how she is living now, experiencing this low wage position. So she says this level of disability might justify a day of ice packs and stretching. Her use of imagery here, she doesn't say, in my ordinary life, when I felt bad, I would just take the day off, right? But she actually uses imagery to convey the what that kind of day would look like for her. The comparison here, I comfort myself with the Aleve commercial where the cute blue collar guy asks, and referencing, she didn't have to mention that he was cute, right? But this is again an attempt at lightening the mood, or at least creating some kind of humor here. If you quit after working 4 hours, what would your boss say? And the not so cute blue collar guy, all right, so making the humor, who's lugging a metal beam on his back, answers, he'd fire me, that's what. But unfortunately, the commercial tells us we workers can exert the same kind of authority over our painkillers that our bosses exert over us. So it's clever because what she's doing here is she's actually analyzing this marketing technique and pointing out the ridiculousness of that kind of message, but in a very humorous way. If Tylenol doesn't want to work for more than 4 hours, you just fire its ass and switch to a leave, right? So we all watch commercials and think, okay, that's not how real life is, but the message is still there, the marketing is still there, and she's taking what's really not a very funny situation, her own physical pain, and making it seem humorous. True, I take occasional breaks from this life. So again, giving us insight into how this process worked for her, this whole, kind of going undercover process worked for her. Now and then to catch up on email, though I'm careful to pay for everything I eat here. Okay, so letting us know that she's still following the rules, seeing the Truman Show with friends, and I still have those what am I doing here moments at work. Again, really conversational, informal kind of writing using this string of words as one particular phrase, of what am I doing here moment, connects to her audience, makes it sound as though she's talking to us, makes it sound as though she's really being very honest and forthcoming in her experiences, so that we are moved by her experience and believe the authenticity of what she and people in these positions are in these jobs are going through. All right. But as the days go by, my old life is beginning to look exceedingly strange. The emails and phone messages addressed to my former self come from a distant race of people with exotic concerns and far too much time on their hands. So even a little dig on her own former self, exotic referring to rare, that again, drawing this comparison between the two different perspectives, people who have disposable incomes, who are educated and living comfortable lives, their problems are completely foreign to the problems of these low-wage workers who are barely getting by. And the use of the word exotic underscores that idea. And then we're going to look at this last sentence. I wanted to take this last sentence and look at that on the graphic organizer. So let's go back to that. Okay, so here's our graphic organizer. We are going to start with our quotation. The neighborly market I used to cruise for produce now looks forbiddingly like a Manhattan yuppie emporium. So my way of putting that into my own words, I said, the store where I used to buy expensive, healthy groceries now feels like a snobby place where rich people shop. Okay, your paraphrase may be a little bit different. That's totally fine. So I noticed the euphony, the euphonous sound created by that U sound, used, cruise, produce. So I wanted to mention that. And then also her word choice, her diction, forbiddingly, yuppie, emporium, and that goes along with her language using these slang terms. So I said the effect is that the smooth sounds mimic that idea of a smooth life, or that experience of just casual, no worry shopping. And the word choice with the slang conveys that dramatic shift in her own perspective. So I want to take this, turn it into actual prose. So I've used what I wrote there and then added some as well. So my rhetorical analysis, I said, Ehrenreich never loses sight of her audience, educated people with disposable incomes. That's my claim. That's my interpretation of what she's doing. And now I need to explain or support that interpretation. I said she herself is one of those people, and she uses her realizations to underscore the gap in perspective between the people she is writing about and the people she is writing for. Now I'm going to get to the technique and the effect. She employs a euphonous word combination of used, cruise, and produce. And I left off one of the quotation marks, I'm sorry. But I wanted to say something here too. Oftentimes, students feel like they need to include an entire chunk of a sentence or even the entire sentence, when really what they're analyzing are specific words. So this is one example of how you can make sure that the bulk of your analysis is your own interpretation and your own writing, but still using the parts of the text that you need to in order to prove your point. So just consider that. So she uses those words, okay, to describe the ease with which she formerly shopped for food. So not just pointing out, hey, here are some words that sound nice together, but actually getting to why she did that. What's the effect? What's the connection to the larger piece? She's trying to point out that shopping before was very easy and now it's not. And the euphonist word combination works to achieve that goal. Her ignorant bliss has been threatened by her new experiences as a low-wage worker, whose perspective she can now understand, as indicated by the use of the insulting slang word yuppie and the trendy, overwrought term emporium. Okay, so we could keep going. There's lots here, but you could hopefully at the end of this write a well-written essay where you analyze the rhetorical strategies Ehrenreich uses to characterize her experiences. Or to modify that, you could say how she achieves her purpose in depicting other people's lives and creating change. So there's a lot of different ways you can take this passage, a lot of different elements to analyze. As always, we want to say thank you for your hard work. Keep up the hard work and fare thee well, young scholars.